Mhm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is one of the conversations I've been looking forward to sharing with you. Today, we are joined by a person who not only shows us what to do, but he also shows us how. Today, I'm joined by John Espirian from the United Kingdom, and we are talking about Uplift Live Nano. Now, you wonder, what is Uplift Live Nano? So, John, please introduce yourself and let us know what you aim to do with this Nano conference.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you for having me, first of all, Andrea. It's great to speak to you. I'm John Espirian. I call myself the relentlessly helpful LinkedIn nerd. I'm a former software and hardware tester and a copywriter of more than a decade, but now I'm a LinkedIn trainer. I run the Espresso Plus community, and a couple of years ago, I co-created an event, a conference in the UK called Uplift Live, which has been running successfully for 2 years. It's coming back next year again for its third outing. And as an experiment, as a way of connecting people around the country, I thought I'd run an event closer to my hometown. So we've got an event coming up in Cardiff, which is just a kind of short over lunchtime, lunch and learn kind of mini event at a much lower price than the full conference. But you get a chance to meet me, have lunch, ask all of your burning LinkedIn questions, because I find that I get questions every day because it's such a fast moving platform. It's a bit confusing, and lots of stuff changes, so people always want to know the latest of what's happening with LinkedIn. So that's why I set that up, and it's on its way on the 11th of September in Cardiff.
The 11th of September, and
Yeah.
I know you said that it's just a short distance from Birmingham, and so I asked you, and I was intrigued as to what it was because Nano Uplift Live Nano,
Yeah.
what is that? So I'm
Well,
very excited.
I think a big conference is scary for a lot of people. Like, there's hundreds of people there, and you don't know anyone, and you've got all these high level speakers flying in from around the world to speak at an event, and that's a little bit intimidating for some people. So this one is going to be much more homely. It's I'm going to be the only featured speaker, and I'm going to be speaking to everyone in the room personally. We've only got space for a few dozen people, and it'll be hopefully a lot more just really friendly, approachable. Anyone can ask their questions, and they'll get lots of value from the day.
I like how you say only, if only.
Yeah.
I think that you're one of the most trusted sources on LinkedIn, and if not, everywhere else you happen to be. You often speak about being consistent and being
Yeah.
congruent. And
Mm.
I've taken some of the learnings from getting ready for this today and looking at your choice of words, the way you present yourself. And I wonder, what are some of the easiest things that we can do as content creators, as small business owners, or really anyone to get our names out there and be known for what we do?
Mm. Well, if we're talking about doing this on LinkedIn, which is obviously my specialism, I think the best way of getting yourself seen is taking part in the conversations that are happening that are relevant to your industry and expertise. And the best way to do that is to do it through comments. I'm a massive advocate of going and finding relevant conversations happening in your field of expertise and commenting, because you never know who's going to see that content, and very often it's people you've never heard of. But if you're mixing in the right circles, then you can make a great impression with people. And I've lost count of the number of people who've said, I've just seen you comment on so and so's post, but I really like you, the way you think about this. Let's connect. And that person would never have found me if they were just looking, if I was just posting my own stuff, or even worse, just not doing anything at all. So if I were to advise people, I'd get started in the comments, but also and this comes back to the message I'm trying to deliver in my book, which is that you've got to kind of find a way of describing yourself and popping that into your headline on LinkedIn, on your website, anywhere else, that really tries to encapsulate what you're all about, so that you make the right kind of dent in the world, if you like, so that people notice you in a sea of sameness. Because there's loads of people doing the same sorts of things. You've got to think about what your distinct value proposition is, and convey that as concisely as you can. And that's a really hard challenge. But if you can do that and marry it with doing loads of comments, then people will start to notice you, and they'll want to connect with you, and you'll start building your network from there.
That is so true. That is one of the first things that someone suggested that I do when I joined LinkedIn, was to first comment rather than post.
Yeah.
Because when we enter a new culture, LinkedIn is a culture, and you come into a culture and you don't know how it works. So sitting back and reading and watching isn't necessarily the way that we are going to be seen.
Yeah.
And so you published a book that has become some people really turn to this book for extra help. And being relentlessly helpful is your nature. You wear a lab coat, you're testing things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that came from, do you know what, that phrase has done a lot of heavy lifting for me over the years. But it was just an accidental moment. It's something that I said on stage in response to a question that was totally unscripted. It came out of my mouth, people responded really well, and it's stuck with me ever since. But that was one of the reasons why I wrote the book, because I thought there must be a way of trying to whittle down what your essence is, and conveying that to the world, so that people reading the book can have their own version of relentlessly helpful for them. And so that's where the book Content DNA kind of came from. But the way I would say this to anyone who's not hasn't dug into their personal brand journey, if you like, is to think about what is the biggest promise that you're able to keep, that you want to share with the world. And for me, saying that I'm relentlessly helpful is a very big claim. If it were just a gimmick, then it would get called out. It's just fancy words. It doesn't really mean anything. So you've actually got to live this identity that you're portraying to the world. It can't just be a mask that you wear. It has to be something truthful. Otherwise, that mask will eventually slip. So take some time, take some introspection. You might need to speak to friends or your best clients. And there's other methods in the book that talk about how to get there. But I think it's helped a lot of people to stand out from the shadows a little bit more than they were before. And another analogy I give with regards to putting yourself out there is kind of, if you imagine that LinkedIn is the dinner party, then do you want to be the person who is trying to stand up every few seconds and set the tone of what's being talked about? Isn't it easier, at least to start with, of being that person who just chips in on the conversation when others share their ideas? It's much lower stakes to just start by contributing to the conversation that's already going on before you take the final leap of starting your own conversations. Because I think a lot of people dive in, post some stuff, think that it's going to fly. It gets nowhere because you haven't spent time building a network, and then they think, this isn't for me, and I'm going to give up. And that's awful.
That is true. And I can relate to some of this, in the sense that when I first joined LinkedIn, you're connecting with as many people as you can, because there's a threshold before your what you're sharing is shown to the world. The more you build a network, the more visibility, which is what we are trying to achieve. I also know that I wandered, not one, I see that, I wandered around a few times until I've come to a point in this conversation online where it feels good. It's almost like you just feel it, right? What it is that you want to do, what it is that you want to share, what it is that you want to be seen for, but not having a mask. Not having a mask is important. I think, to me, we can all see right through that. And we often see that in different ways, in messaging and so on. You're like, no, that's not going to work for me. And
Yeah,
so
I
that's
think
not.
I think you know what, another benefit of putting whatever your true brand identity out in the world is that you can then be more intentional about the people that you connect with, because you're saying, look world, this is me. And those people can see those signals, and you can attract the kind of people that you want to deal with, rather than doing what a lot of people do, which is just rushing to build a network. And I made the same mistake in the very early days of LinkedIn. You just connect with anyone, but actually those people don't know enough about you, and they're not really invested in you, and they won't care about your success or failure. It's much better to plant your flag in the ground, say what you stand for and what you're all about, so that you can attract the kind of people who think the same way as you and who will actually care when you put some stuff out into the world, even if that's many fewer people. Like, you might be 10 people, but if they really care, then that's much more valuable than probably 200 people who don't know you from Adam, right?
That's so true. On that note, in getting ready for today, I was looking at automated messaging
Hmm.
online,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and they are out there. They're advertising
Yeah.
different prices, different levels, different everything. What can you tell us about staying clear of trying to build a network with automated messaging?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand, I suppose, why it would appeal to some people, because you press a button and stuff happens. Someone, something sends out 200 or whatever it is automated messages, and maybe one person actually is interested at that exact moment in time, but you've annoyed the other 199 people, and you haven't really built a real connection with that one person who has responded. So for me, I think we're at the stage where it's still fairly easy to tell the difference between a truly human message and something that has been scripted through an automated bot. And so I would caution against using any tools like that. And I always say that when we reach the point where you can't tell the difference, society has bigger problems to worry about at that stage. If you can't tell whether you're talking to a human or a robot, we're in big trouble. But right now you can, and I wouldn't recommend it, even though it might appear easier. If LinkedIn is way down, for example, your list of priorities, and you need to get something done, I guess there's an argument for it. But as someone who uses the platform a lot, I just wouldn't give someone any time if they approach me in that way. So I would just avoid it. And someone asked me the other day, what's your approach to LinkedIn in an age of automation? And I say, as much as possible, to double down on the things that obviously show that you're a human being. So, for example, Andrea, that I send voice notes to people,
Yes.
and I also send videos to people as well. And that's an investment in time in that person. And again, it's much harder to fake that kind of thing. It's not a robot voice. It's really me, and I'm out for a walk and I'm talking to you. That shows that I've invested something in you. That shows that at some level you matter to me, because I can't do that 1,000 times a day, right? My time is limited. If you do those sorts of things, it's kind of a big time investment, but over a while, it will show others that you are a real person who's trying to build real relationships. And obviously, you're not going to be spammy or inappropriate or any of those awful things. You're just trying to build real relationships, and over time, that pays out, I think.
I believe it's true. We sometimes receive messages that say something to the effect of, I really like what you're doing. But and you
Mm.
wonder, what is it that I am doing that you really like?
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
doesn't.
And look, I mean, we're a case in point. It's taken us years to get to this point where you're on a live stream interviewing me on the other side of the world. And if on the very first interaction I'd said, "Well, Andrea, definitely buy my book, and you need to, come to my conference, and you need to join this community, and it's a limited price. Buy now." Like, I'm going to scare you away. I would
Mhm.
rather attract the kind of people who see what I'm doing is of some value, and maybe years later it pays off, because perhaps I get to meet you in the UK, or I come on your show, and that's a win for me. But I'm not thinking in terms of timescale. I'm just thinking about building the relationship. So that's it.
I well, I think we've on the background we've had different conversations. I am part of Espresso Plus, and I've been following you on LinkedIn for some time.
Mhm.
I also have bought tickets for Uplift Live Nano with the intent to attend in person. And well, I already have Uplift Live for 2026. So I guess there is a level of trust that you have shared with the world that is
Mhm.
coming across clearly. Now, I know one of the things that that you really embrace, and you often repeat this about reading through your profile or reading through
Mhm.
someone's profile and finding something that you can relate the message to. In your
Yeah.
case, you have one word in your profile. I
Yeah.
won't say the word, but you have one word in your profile that you've placed there as to tell people,
Yeah.
please look for this word and then reach out
Mhm.
to me.
Yeah, that's right. I think in my trainings, I call this creating as many conversation hooks as you can. So that's you can put something in your headline that sparks some intrigue. You can put a kind of secret word thing in your about message just to show that real humans are reading it. I also recommend having an icebreakers section in your about. So if you go and find my LinkedIn profile, you'll see that I've got a list of 4 or 5 things that nothing to do with work at all, but they kind of humanize the profile a little bit, and it gives me a chance to talk about non-work subjects. And I think this is a mistake that a lot of people make. They see LinkedIn as it's a business professional profile platform. Yes, it is, but we're not robots, and people will talk about something that isn't just purely about business. So showing a bit of character, a bit of personality, is not going to hurt. In fact, it's probably going to help you a lot. At the other end of the scale, some people kind of forget all of the rules and just it's purely personality led. And I think when that happens, then like I don't know what you do day to day to earn money, so I kind of need to know something. But I think that the right answer is some kind of balance in between the middle, but not at the extreme ends of either, because I think you lose out that way.
I do like that you put everything on in the open. Your pricing is in
Uh-huh.
the open.
Yeah.
Your approach is in the open. There's no secrets. And if there is any question, you're open to answering questions. So,
Yeah. I just think, as a buyer, if I were a buyer and I go to someone's website and I have absolutely no indication of how much this service is going to cost me, other than maybe looking at their fancy graphics and thinking, I bet this is expensive. That's not good, because I'll probably go somewhere else. So I don't want to give people that impression. So I'd rather tell people. And it's not like I'm really going to be changing my price depending on who you are. It's not like, oh, I think you've got lots of money, so I'm going to charge you a totally different amount. So I always say to people, at the very least, give people some indication of the factors that determine your price, and maybe have something like a starting from price. So if it's like the most basic, simple project in the world, you at least have a ballpark figure. But don't make people guess, because you'll probably drive them away. It's hard enough to get people's attention as it is.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I suppose that you know uh, transparency is means something to me. So I don't see the point of hiding anything. So yeah, I'll tell people anything they ask for. And why not save my time by just putting it out there so I don't have to answer that question?
All
Like,
right.
I don't want to answer emails all day saying, yeah, this membership costs this much or training costs this much. It's out there
So,
for people to see.
so it's an efficiency thing as well. It
Yeah,
just helps
definitely,
you.
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Especially when you're working in different things. It's not just you're not just sitting at the computer answering messages. You have other things that you
Yeah.
want to accomplish, including Uplift Life Nano. So let's turn the page once again to Uplift Life in general, and
Mhm.
then Uplift
Yeah.
Life Nano.
Hmm.
You you have a certain leadership style. And I know that people are following you because they want to be there for the conference and they also want to help. There are other people who are helping with Uplift Live. And I wonder what you can say about that. The fact that we need, at some point in time, to rely on the people we trust to get the work
Well,
done.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had the idea for the conference, but I knew that there's no way that I'd be able to do this whole thing on my own, because running a big event is not easy. You've got to think about venues and food and online, website, booking tickets, booking speakers, sorting out travel, and there's so many things to think about. So of course you can't go far if you want to go on your own. So that comes back to having people that you can trust, and you can deputize stuff out, and we've also got volunteers helping us as well. So some people from the Espresso Plus community are kind of they're there on the day, and they're helping guide people in the right direction and just helping with logistics, and that's lovely that people do those kind of things. So yeah, it wouldn't be possible if I were to do it on my own. So if it were just a pure, money making exercise, and I just want all the profit for myself, well, I'm not going to run a very good event if I'm doing that. But yeah, we're spreading the love out a little bit and getting people, like-minded people, to help, and hopefully like-minded people to come and be in the audience as well. And almost all of the people we've invited to actually take the main stage are speakers from around the world, are people that I've known for years as well. So it's lovely to, because do you know what the vision for this thing goes back to a tweet that I wrote some years ago. I think might have been 2021, and I said that one day I'm going to get all of my Friday Shout people in one room.
Nice.
And I thought, that's the dream. And this is kind of the approximation of that. I'm getting people from around the world, many of whom I know, many of whom are on my post-it wall behind me of Espresso Plus members who've come from around the world to come to this event. And I get a chance to meet them in real life. And that's kind of taking LinkedIn into the real world. There's no automation there. You're right, standing in front of someone, shaking their hand. So it's great.
No, it is. It is an international conference, and I know that sometimes people will ask you, "When are you coming to the United States, or where are you coming to this other
Yeah.
place?" And I'm guessing it's all in due time, because what is the biggest learning of running a conference?
I think just being really organized with the way that you communicate things, because there's so many things to know with so many different sets of people. You've got your organizers need to know one set of things, your volunteers need to know something else, your speakers need to know something else, which hotel, airport am I flying to? And communicating with the people in the audience so that they know all of the stuff they need to know about attending. So I think getting your communications really solid has been probably the big thing. Yeah, it's just been a fab experience. It can be very, very stressful at times trying to run a conference, because you never quite know. Are we going to fill this venue? Are we going to make any kind of profit out of this at all? Because we didn't set it up to make money, but obviously, if you're going to put months of effort into something, you need to make a return. So, how do you price your tickets to make a profit? And then, oh look, international travel's just increased in price massively. So how do we pay for speakers? It's been an interesting learning experience. So thankfully the nano event that's coming up is going to be just so much smaller, it's much easier, and so much more local to me that I won't have to worry about almost any of those things. So hopefully that'll just be a nice small local event that, if it works, then I can start rolling it out elsewhere. And in terms of the kind of the international view of this conference, if we ever get there, we need to really be growing in the UK to prove the business case, because I suppose it's another level of financial risk to say, okay, we're going to book out this massive stadium in Texas or something, and just hope that we'll be able to sell tickets. So yeah, I think we might be some way off that yet, but it's still only we've still only done 2 of these events, so it's still relatively new. But the feedback from those who came has been excellent so far. So I'm really happy with that.
That is. I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for everyone who's part of the event. And so, John, when it comes to strategy, what would you suggest to someone who, it's essentially hit the road, but they're stalling when
Uh,
they're on LinkedIn or anywhere
yeah,
in business?
yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I suppose I would go back to getting your personal brand foundation right, because if you don't have a clear idea about that, or you don't truly understand the market that you're trying to serve, you know, is there a big enough addressable market for for what you're trying to put out into the world? Because if there isn't, the best writer in the world is going to struggle to create content that's going to serve that very, very small or non-existent audience. So you kind of have to be sure that the people that you want to serve are truly out there, and that you have a really good grasp on what pain that they're having that you can solve. Your job here is to be a painkiller, right? Whose pain are you solving, and how exactly are you going to get that done? And once you know what you stand for and who you're serving, then you connect those two through your content. So I often say to clients, look, how much work have you done creating content that answers every single question that your ideal customer might ask you or has asked you in the past? And then they'll go and look at their email inbox and they'll go, oh yeah, I answered that one last week and I did this and did that. And you think, well, you're just creating content one to one. Let's create that at scale. So take that thing that you helped Bob with last week and make a video, or create a blog post, or write a short form LinkedIn post, or create a document or whatever that shows the rest of the world that you really know what you're talking about. Because if you do enough of that, it says to the reader, this person's been around the block. They know exactly what they're talking about. They've answered every question under the sun. Let me just get my checkbook out and let's make a deal right now.
Mhm.
That's what you want to get to. But has to start with understanding what you're for and what your audience wants.
That is true, and I've learned more and more as I do these events, these conversations. The more questions we ask, right, and with people who know us,
Mm-hmm.
and what we're trying to achieve, because sometimes we have this idea, and then there is something that needs to be worked out a little bit longer, right? And so I have one question with when you change strategy, when you change the direction that you're going. I was reading a newspaper for a venture capitalist who's known for asking lots of questions. And he's upfront. He says, I'm going to be asking you lots of questions, not because I don't believe what
Mm-hmm.
you're telling me, but I need to
Mm-hmm.
know. I need to know. And then he said that he was, and I'm paraphrasing, that he sometimes would change the things that he wanted to do or say, but they were
Mm.
micro changes and it was causing a lot of confusion. How can
Okay.
we learn from that to improve our presence online? That our messaging needs to be clear.
It really does. I mean, I'm a big advocate of congruence. So every time you show up, you should have the same metaphorical shape. Um, and if you are going to make any kind of conscious change, I think people would always appreciate it if you can explain your thinking. I think people are willing to accept change so long as it's clearly explained why there's a change. Um, but apart from that, if you don't need to make any changes, you set out your stall and then keep showing up with that same um, shape every single time. I see a lot of people who've spent some time doing branding work, including visual branding work, and then they don't actually apply it, and that's frustrating. It's like you've got an opportunity to imprint your visual shape on the world every time you show up, and you don't take that opportunity, and other people have not even done that work before. But it extends beyond visuals. It can be turns of phrase. Like I've got my own kind of informal dictionary of things that I say. Probably heard me referring to douche canoes and things like that, right? And it's things that they're almost like calling cards. They're things that people associate with you. So lean on those as heavily as you can. But if you ever need to change direction, I think that's totally fine, so long as you explain your thinking. Because that's one thing that people can't easily Google, right?
Right.
You can Google loads of things, but you can't necessarily Google the way someone thinks about a particular niche. And if you can see that expressed on LinkedIn, if it's short form, long form, video, whatever, I think people really appreciate going under the hood and seeing how someone else's brain operates, and the questions you asked yourself. Because I always think the most intelligent people ask just the deadliest questions. They get right to the point and they ask really incisive things. And if you can almost interrogate yourself while you're writing things and show people your level of thought about things, I think people really appreciate that. So that's probably my answer.
That is so true. So, John, I know that food is center stage at your conferences, and I really appreciate that because we all can relate to attending a conference where food
Yeah.
is we may pack a lunch.
Yeah,
And
you
so,
won't need to do that with us now. We'll put on a good spread for you. Yeah, it matters because something, you go for the learning, right? Ostensibly, you're going to a conference for the learning, but if they serve terrible coffee, you're going to remember the terrible coffee, and that's going to color your thinking of the whole thing. So even though that might feel like a minor detail or a cost-cutting exercise for some people, if it's going to be right, it's got to be right across the board. You've got to get good speakers, you've got to get a good venue, but you've got to feed people well. And also, for an event that lasts a whole day, if you give someone rubbish to eat at lunch, they're falling asleep in the afternoon. So you just can't do that. So we're not going to do that. So our food at the first two conferences has been very, very well received, and we're going to make sure we do the same again next year. So we will feed you well.
oh, that's fantastic. So, with that in mind, food for thought, your book, Content DNA,
Mm-hmm.
you had this idea to publish a book at a time where your your planning changed. And
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
the book. Many people have the book. I have read
Mm-hmm.
it. It is a packed with information.
No, you're very kind. Thank you.
How are we going? You're welcome. How are we going
And here it is.
to, yes,
Here it
content
is.
DNA?
Yeah.
And tell us about your vision for the book, John.
Well, at the point that I was started writing it, I was coming up for 10 years of experience in copywriting. So it felt like this is the point in my professional life where I probably should start writing down some of the things that I tell people all the time when I do branding consultations with them. And also, I wanted to tell the little story of how Relentlessly Helpful came around and give people some guidance on how they could come up with their own, because I can't put a cash value on how much that phrase has been worth to me, but it really helps me be remembered, and that probably means I get more gigs than I would have otherwise, and therefore it's probably worth quite a lot. And if I can help someone come up with their own version of that, their own flavor of that, then that's a nice service to be providing. So I started writing this thing. I finished writing it at the end of 2019, and I was told, 3 or 4 months, this will be ready to publish. Great, all's good with the world. And then this COVID-19 thing happens, and instead of having a big book launch at a massive conference that was going to happen in the UK, everything got shut down. My books got stuck in the garage, and I couldn't do a book launch. So everything has been online with it in the 5 years since it's been released. But I suppose one good thing about the way I wrote it deliberately is I was taking all of my best practice lessons and writing them in an evergreen style, so that the book really, apart from one or two tiny little bits, the book is as true today as it was when I wrote it. It's lessons for how you can stand out in business, and that could be on any platform. It doesn't have to be on LinkedIn, even though that's my personal favorite, but you could apply the rules anywhere. And it's not time sensitive. It's evergreen. So yeah, you could pick it up now and hopefully get something from it. And actually, on the transparency thing, I just remembered that I make the first 6 chapters of this book available in written and audio form through my website, and it's not gated, so you can just go and listen. You can read or listen and decide whether you want to buy it based on those opening 6 chapters. And if you don't, that's totally cool. At least you've saved yourself some money. And if you do, then at least you've had an exposure to it before you've committed to paying the money. So yeah.
That's great. So no email sign-ups, nothing. It's all
No,
there.
you don't need to do anything.
That's
I don't really
fantastic.
believe in gating, because that also flies in the face of a lot of marketing best practice. Like, you've got to get an email address. You've got to get an email address. Why? so I can spam you, and all you wanted to do is get my ebook. Like, if all you wanted to do is get the ebook, I don't want to be sending you emails. I'm wasting my time and yours. I would rather say, look, here's my content. It's free. If you like me enough that you really want to see the everything, then you'll come into my paid community, and a small proportion of people will do that. But I don't want to annoy everyone else, so I'm not going to ask for your email address just to give you some content, just as an exchange. I think that's it's not great.
Yeah, I agree. What have you had a proper book lunch, John? And if not,
No.
when can we expect one?
Well, maybe I should launch it again at the next conference. I don't know, but I take copies when I go to small in person events, but there was never any big fanfare because there couldn't be until sort of late 2021, and it's already, the book's been out for like 18 months at this point. But before the world kind of started to get back to normal, it just felt too late then. So no, I have toyed with the idea of writing a second book, but to be honest, I'm kind of, I do always think that the difference between having zero books and one book is massive, and the difference between having one book and two books isn't really that massive at all. So I am a published author, and I'm kind of happy with that title, and I've got an evergreen book that is still helping people today. So for now, that's I'm happy with that, I think.
Well, I really appreciate the fact that you're using this word and you're repeating it, so that your messaging is always consistent. If you when we listen to anyone, not just you, those words stick around for a long time. And when you say evergreen, it means it's
Yeah,
always there. It's always
yeah.
relevant, right?
Hmm.
Maybe other people have published similar things, but yours will remain relevant throughout and is somewhat futuristic, right?
Well, I mean, there's absolutely no doubt that other people have published similar content because I think all ideas are derivative, frankly. So I can't say that there's anything truly original in there, but it is based on my real world experience, which other people don't have. And also my turns of phrase, the things that make me me. And I try to write the way I talk as much as possible, so that there's no real disconnect. You're not going to find some stuffy formal business language in this book. It really does sound like me, for better or worse. Maybe you don't like that style, in which case you probably won't like anything I do, which is totally fine. That's the way things go. But yeah, it does represent me pretty well, I think, and it's rare for me to say that I'm proud of any piece of work because I tend to beat myself up quite a lot. But I think I'm quite proud of that one.
But what we can say, John, is that you have the first of its kind Uplift Live and now Uplift Live Nano, which are the
Yes.
UK's first LinkedIn focus conference.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I was surprised that no, because LinkedIn don't really run their own events, and we looked around and we couldn't find anything else that was kind of like this. And I have been to a lot of marketing conferences, and sometimes it gets like, it'll get a 5 minute mention, and it's like, oh, okay, we need a bit more depth. We need something for the nerds, the people who actually tend to spend a lot of time on the platform, or who just want to unlock the extra secrets, like all the secret sauce, all that stuff. So yeah, I know that some events go on in other parts of the world. There's one in Denmark, for example, that I haven't had a chance to go to yet, but there is a LinkedIn conference that happens there, which is partly in Danish, but some of it in English. I think there's one in Italy as well. So there are some things dotted around, but in the UK, there was nothing. And I'm not sure if there's an official one in the States. I don't think there is, not one that I'm aware of, but it felt like there was a gap in the market. And, we've had a couple of hundred people coming along each year. So that's a good start for sharing, spreading the word about best practice on this place.
Well, really appreciate it. And I am showing the website for joining Uplift Live Nano. And also, John Espirian's profile is here on LinkedIn. If you're watching on LinkedIn, at this point, this is only streaming here, but I think that want you with being congruent, right? One step at a time, because sometimes I know you say that we don't need to be everywhere because it may not be the right time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you try to be great in 5 places, you're probably going to suck in 5 places, realistically. So it's much easier to build up in one place and then maybe move an existing audience over to another place once you've built up the first one. But that, of course, then means that you are betting a little bit about, well, what if this place that I'm building on gets shut down, right? That could happen. And so whatever you do on social media, because all of that is couched in terms of social media, you should also do something that is a domain that you do own. So like your own website, your own email list. You probably do need to build on your own land like that. But in terms of being seen, you tend to be seen via social media in the online world anyway. And in that regard, I think we should spend some time just saying, maybe I'm going to have one main social platform and maybe another one as a kind of a shadow 10% kind of place to play and test ideas and stuff, but not to suddenly say, right, I'm going to build on TikTok, I'm going to build on Instagram, I'm going to build on Facebook, LinkedIn, who knows, Snapchat, who knows where else. That's like, unless you've got a massive team, that's going to be exhausting, and you're probably not going to do any of it brilliantly. So far better to be known somewhere and then move an audience over once you've built up enough kudos, I think. And that does take time. It's one of the things that I say often to clients is that, here's the unsexy message. All of this stuff that I'm telling you is probably going to take years to come off, definitely quite a few months, and it's definitely not going to happen in 2 weeks. So if you're thinking, I'll write 3 blogs and all of a sudden I'm top of Google and everyone's loving me on LinkedIn or wherever, just realistically, it's not going to happen. And that's like pretty much anything in life, right? If I said that you're going to have killer abs in 2 weeks, it's just like, who's believing that? But if I say, just, run on the beach for an hour a day for months, that's going to work. But people don't want to hear that message, unfortunately. But it is true. There's no fast route to
No,
this kind of stuff.
no easy way out. No
No,
easy way
that's right.
out.
That's
Well,
right.
John, this has been fantastic. I really, I've been working up this momentum to come, my adrenaline to come in here and speak with you. I know you make yourself available for conversations to Espresso Plus members. You make yourself available to conversations in the direct messaging as long as they are personalized, because that's what really matters. Now we personalize these conversations.
Yes.
And I really
It's a tough that. You're welcome. That's a tough one, because LinkedIn have made it harder for us because free accounts can only send 5 personalized notes per month. So, but one thing I've got, because I'm a premium member, I have this thing called open profile. So anyone can message me on LinkedIn for free. So if you actually want to get my attention, send me a message, and it doesn't have to be anything salesy or anything like that. Just say hi and say, you watched the conversation with Andrea and you'd like to have a chat in the DMs. Cool, that's great. Introduce yourself and I'll pay attention. But most people don't. And therefore, when time's short and I've got 40 outstanding invitations and I've never heard of these people and they don't say anything, it ain't a surprise when I tend to ignore a lot of them. So if you don't want to be ignored, try to say something if you can.
Great. Right. Well, thank you for your time today, John. It's
You're
been
very welcome.
fantastic being here today, and my day is my day is full with this energy I'm taking from this. So I'm sure other people feel the same. I know other people feel the same, in fact. And for those of you who are listening and who are watching, thank you for being here. This conversation will continue at another time. Have a fantastic day. Thank you, John. And if you'd like to share a closing thought, please do so.
Just have more conversations is what I would say. Have more real conversations. That's the thing that makes a difference. We're not robots. Let's not act like it.
Thank you. Fantastic day, everyone.